Okay, we have to find the equation of this straight line graph here in the diagram. First thing that strikes me with this graph is that it's sloping that way, which means I'm going to get a negative gradient. Okay, negative gradient. I'll just undo that. Write that a little bit better. Yeah, it's a negative gradient. And so the number in front of the x when I get the equation in a moment has to be a negative number, okay, because I've got a negative gradient. Your teacher might have shown you about the y equals mx plus c rule, where the number in front of the x, the coefficient of x, is negative if you've got a negative gradient. So we expect later on a negative number there. All right, first thing we're going to do is actually find the gradient. Okay, so we've got 2 points here. We've got 0, 6 and 3, 0. That's our x and y intercept. And I'm going to call them x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. Doesn't matter which way I go as long as I'm consistent. So I could have called the right-hand one there x1, y1 and the left-hand one x2, y2, still get the same answer. So I'm going to use a formula to find the gradient. And the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so I'm going to put in the values that I've just labelled. Okay, so my y2 is 0 minus y1 is 6 over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is 0. That gives me negative 6 divided by 3, and that is negative 2. So the gradient of this line is negative 2. Also, I could have got that from rise over run. The rise is 6 and the run is 3, and it's sloping in a negative direction. So negative 2. But I wanted to introduce you to the gradient formula because it's a very handy one to use. All right, so now I know my gradient, or m, is negative 2. My y-intercept is 0, 6, or just 6. Don't mind you just writing it as 6 or positive 6. So the equation y equals mx plus c rule is going to be y equals negative 2x plus 6. So that is the equation for that graph. Let's look at the equation for this graph. Now this time, instead of using the formula y2 minus y1, I might use the formula for gradient that it equals rise over run. Rise over run. The rise of this graph, okay, so that distance there is 1. The run from 0 to 2, so that's the run, is 2. So my gradient is a half. Now the question is it positive a half or negative half? I mentioned in class that because it's sloping that way, we get a positive gradient. Okay, so the gradient is a half. All right, y equals mx plus c rule. Y equals a half x plus the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is actually at 0. So we don't really have to put plus 0. We can just leave it as y equals a half x. So that's the equation for that graph. Last one's probably the easiest of the 3 questions in this video. Find the equation of a straight line with a gradient of 2 and a y-intercept of 5. So y equals mx plus c. The gradient, m, is 2. The y-intercept is negative 5. So the graph is just y equals 2x minus 5. All right. Next graph. here. I might do that on a separate video because that involves a few more skills. So we might leave this video at that, and that'll get us started with finding the equations of graphs.